The wish list. Item 23. The snow made all the difference. Without it, the whole escapade would still have been an extraordinary experience, but it would have been manic and nerve-wracking. With it, it became magical. Nick's plan was simple. Mad, but simple. They left the warehouse with a truck full of packaged presents. From there, they drove to the roof level of a multi-story car park in a nearby town to resupply the drones. The car park was a concrete, brutalist cube on the side of a ring road around the centre of a small market town. It was not the loveliest building, squat and stained, looming over the streets below, but with the snow softening out its hard edges, it faded into the grey skies beyond, a heavy cloud brought to earth. And from it, Alfie could see the whole medieval town centre spread out below him, the narrow and winding streets, the covered market, the punctuation of church spires and towers, the remaining walls of the ruined castle on a small hillock on a bend in the river, all muffled under the quietly insistent snow. But in the gathering drifts, light. All of those streets were hung about with municipal decorations, bright and glimmering. The glass roof of the market shone from within. The stained glass of the churches glowed. And down out of the falling snow dropped the drones. Rudolph first, with his antlers still attached, then the others, one of them nipping in ahead of the others, which must be Dasher, Alfie decided. Another weaving down in little drops, so that must be Dancer. Which would make that loud one Donder, and that one Blitzen, because of its flashing lights. They all had flashing lights, of course, but it didn't matter. This was entirely for his own amusement, and he could call them what he liked. He could call those others Prancer and Vixen, Cupid and Comet, and no one could stop him, not even Nick, who merely shook his head and pointed out that they had to get the reindeer loaded before anyone from Stocking.Christmas caught up with them. This was the plan. Stop somewhere, rendezvous with the drones, load them up, and while they buzzed to deliver more presents, drive on to the next rendezvous. And all of this as randomly as possible to avoid Stocking.Christmas figuring out where they might be next. Of course, at this time of year, there were plenty of Stocking.Christmas vehicles and drivers on the road, all of them no doubt on orders to look out for Alfie and Nick, and most likely the drones. So all they could do was trust to some seasonal luck and try to be as careful as possible. All of which led to stopping in some strange places. There were woods on a snowy morning, a long straight track through a forestry plantation, the space below the snow-capped firs quiet and dark and endless. There was a snowed-over playground on a housing estate where kids were tobogganing down the landscaping berms between the buildings on tea trays and washing-up bowls, and who all rushed over to watch the drones come in to collect their next load. In the end, Alfie had to distract them all by just opening packages and giving away some of the toys, while Nick got the drones away. There was the empty car park of a National Trust landmark, a ruined abbey by a stream that was beginning to ice over at the edges. While they waited for the drones, Alfie walked up to the ruins, the empty Gothic arches framing the grey sky and drifting flakes. A set of worn stairs wound round a column ending in snowy mid-air. A lady chapel was filling with snow up to the altar steps. As Alfie watched the snow fall on the crumbling walls, a deer picked its way into what had once been the nave and stopped, turned, and looked at him. Then it jumped away as Comet came in low between the columns, and Alfie smiled, turned, and followed the drone back to the van. And there was the motorway services that they arrived at through the back roads, between the warehouses and sheds of a small industrial estate, down a muddy track, and suddenly among all the parked cars and trucks under the logos of fast food outlets and supermarkets. The motorway was still just about open, but with the snow still coming, there weren't many people out, and they were able to load the drones unseen in a distant corner of the lorry park. This was the last load. They had now emptied the van entirely. The last gifts were now floating away with the drones into the white and flurried sky. "That's the lot then," said Alfie. "Never thought we'd get away with it. What do we do now?" "Something to eat," said Nick, and led him inside the service station. Alfie had been hoping to treat himself a little, given that they had finally finished their project, but as it turned out, what Nick meant by something to eat was grabbing a sandwich and a cup of coffee from a machine, and immediately leaving again. This, however, turned out to be just as well. This was one of those services that had a covered walkway over the motorway below, so you could cross over to the services on the other carriageway. Nick was just leading them over this when someone behind them called his name. "Nick! Nick close! Clue!" They turned. Piers Cramp was standing at the top of the stairs they had just come up, snowflakes in his hair and on the shoulders of his gillet. "Look, I'm not alone. I've got people with me, but I want to talk to you first," said Piers. "You've got to stop, Nick. You've got to stop this." "Why?" said Nick. "Why?" Piers had evidently not been expecting this question. "Because you're stealing, Nick. You're stealing from us. It's illegal." "But is it wrong?" said Nick. "Everything could have been different. We thought it would, once. We thought the internet would change everything, bring people together. Instead, we just used it to make money. All of us. It was inevitable, I know, but I want to use it to do something different." "You're using it to break the law, Clue," said Piers. "You can't get away with it." "Have so far," said Nick. "For a start, you can't survive just giving things away," said Piers. "That's not how the world works." "Still a shareholder," said Nick. "Aren't I?" "You could sell them. Your shares," offered Alfie, "to activist investment fund, whatever one of those might be." "What?" said Piers, freezing in shock. "Merry Christmas, Piers," said Nick. "Nice to see you too." And he turned, pulling Alfie after him. "Nick, wait!" called Piers after them as they ran down the stairs, and then, "Quick, up here, after them!" They ran through the service station on the other side and out into the car park, where there was, waiting for them, to Alfie's surprise, another Stocking Dot Christmas van. "The app has told the driver to take a break," said Nick. "Come on." And away they went again into the drifting snow.